A new horse on the schedule today, never seen him before, but he's got a fairly decent high-low. So right front being his low heel, left front being his high heel. I've never shod this horse. I've never seen how he trims out, but he's certainly ready to be shod. Looks like he's maybe a couple weeks overdue. Just got him on the books, so here we go. All right, I always start on the low heel side of horses because the low heel typically doesn't trim down as short as our high heel. So my game plan is to discover what depth I can get out of this foot and then take that measurement over to the next foot. So I've never done this horse, so it's shot in the dark of how much I can take off of him. Heels are definitely under load, mainly because our toe length is way out of whack. If we are looking at the center of rotation here, just slightly back from the apex of the frog, right there at the widest point of the foot. If you can see that kind of an imbalance, we have a massive amount of toe. Not sure yet if that's depth or if that's length. So we're gonna find out. A little bit of chalkiness right here around this white line is maybe an indication that his foot is just way too long. We have a fairly deep apex of our frog. I do my best to try and stay out of the frog up here as much as possible, but on horses that I'm trying to find how short to take them, it's critical to know where that apex of the frog is because that defines your depth. So I'm only going to trim the front half of this foot on this one, taking small bites to start until I learn the horse. So my shoeing and my trim will probably change the more times I do this horse. From here, I'm going to collect up that wall. If you see in this white line, if you zoom in right there, if you see in this white line, it's quite a bit thicker right through here than it's supposed to be. You can't really tell exactly. There's no nice standard thickness of white line on this horse. It's all kind of stretched and skewed. But this is this can easily lead you astray on how short you can trim the horse. And also, as you see, it sure looks like I took way too much hoof wall off right there. But we also got to think this white line is abnormally thick, meaning this is a misinterpretation of how thick this hoof wall actually needs to be. The inside of the white line is what's telling me where my sole plane is and where my coffin bone is, not the outside. So if your white line thickens as it comes across the toe, it can lead you astray thinking you need to leave that. That is just essentially a flare of the hoof wall, and that means that wall is under load, improper load. And so it's up to us to read through that and balance that foot accordingly to try and get rid of that thickened white line across the front of the toe. There will be slight thickening just naturally as a cross-section cut of that white line. But when it's 3/8 of an inch thick or something like that, that's a little too thick. So I'm going to start. So I'm measuring to make sure that I get both my fronts the same length. And I'm looking at 3 7/8 of an inch. I'm gonna drop it, make sure my medial-lateral balance is okay. Looks like I need to drop this outside heel. Remember, when I drop feet to sight them, you hold the fetlock and you let that foot naturally fall underneath the center line of the body, or underneath the center line of the limb, I guess. So directly below the elbow, and that will give you a true representation of the plane of that coffin bone inside that hoof capsule. And our goal is to always trim perpendicular to the long axis of the limb when possible. So we're going to start there and see what this other foot turns out to be like. All right, so in our shoe selection, we're going to take a couple things into consideration. So this is our fatter foot, our wider foot, longer toe. We still need to support the toe. There's not a big dish, so we still need to try and support the toe as best possible. This foot is telling me it wants some more caudal support. So I want some heels back here towards these bulbs. Or else what you're gonna wind up doing is encouraging toe length when you're not supporting the back half of the structure of the foot. Especially in this circumstance, this foot needs to be trimmed out a little bit differently in the future when given the opportunity. Today we don't have that opportunity, so we gotta take what we can get. So a 2, if you put it on the foot all the way to the front half of the foot and you measure that up to the toe, it fits this foot beautifully. But if I take a 3 and I put the 3 up against this, we have a lot more expansion back here and a lot more length on our heels, giving us the opportunity to bring our heels back here after it's finished being shaped. And the reason for that is to balance the weight bearing of the shoe, or the otherwise ground surface of the shoe, around the center of articulation of the coffin joint inside there. If we look at our ratios around the center of rotation, from here, our back nail right there shows us right across the widest point of the foot. We have a lot more shoe out front of that center of rotation than we have behind. This number 3, if we look at the widest point back here, we have more heel length behind this nail, and now we have more support back here to center this shoe around that wide point, the widest point of that foot. So we're gonna go with a 3. Good? Mm-hmm. Playing? Action? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. In this shoe set, when I'm checking my fit, so obviously I've already burned a little bit just to get my marks on my shoe so I can see how it fits. The next order of business, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that shoe back to where I wanted it and where I burned it in, which is right there. And seeing in this and incorporating the center of rotation and the widest point of the foot, we still have excess leverage out front versus behind. So this is where the rolled toe comes into play. What I can do is I can grind all the way back here to speed the breakover up and bring our weight-bearing surface that impacts the ground closer to a 50-50 split around the center of rotation. I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. Bearing. All right, back to check the fit with a ground rolled toe in there. So now, the shoe set back where I want it. Now our shoe surface that impacts the ground, if you look at the widest point of the foot right there, from here to the ground end surface of the breakover to the heels, should be a little bit closer to that 50-50 ratio. And I also ground in this right here to speed up the breakover towards the outside of this foot. We have a few more stress rings right here, little stress lines on this side than we have this side, telling me that this hoof capsule bears a little bit more weight on this outside, and it could benefit by rolling that toe just like that. So now when this horse goes and he's in motion, there should be no resistance of the shoe on this hoof capsule when he breaks over, because that breakover is ground in back to where it balances your hoof capsule around that joint inside. When he